again with this kind of, seemingly very political narrative, because at no point was I ever against what most people see as development, which is basically construction. I think it's important to recognize that development is not just buildings, it's also your people's development, which we've neglected a very long time, and which within my ministry I will try and address in the ways I can as well. When it comes to development in terms of construction, not at all. I've stated several times, it's not about saying no to people constructing, it's about making sure it's done correctly, making sure that when you put a building down here, you don't cause an erosion or a landslide for your neighbor, ensuring that it doesn't cause a drainage problem, ensuring that you have enough capacity at GB to actually push water to your building, electricity sources. None of those things have been done in the past as properly as they should have been. That's why you see a lot of the challenges we have today. It does not make sense for me to have campaigned about making things right, and then now for the sake of just going on to get along, I sign every single thing comes to my desk. Not at all.
Right.
I'm not that kind of person. I am. Most people who know me that I don't really care for popularity. What I really look at is trying to do things the right way, and that makes you unpopular. So be it. But I think we've kicked the can down the road far too long.
Right.
And we're now having the chickens come home to roost when it comes to unsustainable development, and I think I'm trying to make that a lot better.
Okay.
And it'll take time, but we're gonna get there.
Right. So instead of kicking down the can, you decided to finally pick up the can.
Pick up the can.
Right.
And
which you've seen lately
very
with
much put it into what is the kind of the sort of the key topic: how do you properly dispose of the can to solve the problem?
Right. Which is something we're gonna get into.
Yep.
Because I believe it's next week.
Yeah, next week.
We're gonna have a
September 3rd.
consultation.
Yes.
When it comes to the landfill.
Yes.
Finally.
Yes.
All right. So tell us a little bit. What can we expect? What is this all about? This whole consultation.
Yeah. So I think I think the landfill, the dump, because it's actually formally a dump. It stems from the fact that we have the World Bank Trust Fund Project for Reconstruction and Redevelopment St.Maarten after Hurricane Irma. One of the projects is Emergency Debris Management Program, EDMP for short.
Yeah.
EDMP began right after hurricane as chip removal. It evolved eventually to say, okay, what can we do on the landfill to suppress these fires? It became a fire suppression project. And then now we're at the stage where we said, okay, we as the ministry, because it wasn't necessarily me at that point in government, what can we do in terms of addressing actually the bigger landfill issue? So currently EDMP actually began as an intervention towards the landfill about how to solve the problem of the dump.
Right.
Come out Wednesday, basically, what it's going to be is they're going to present formally the future ideas regarding waste management in St.Maarten. We're also going to present the physical plan we have for what the landfill is going to look for. So it's transforming the dump into as much as possible, a closed landfill. And then, of course, with all the science around that, representing all that information as well. What has the experts been saying? What is the science saying? What is the best course of action? And then finally, of course, the biggest, most important part of this conversation is what do the people want? Because I think, you have a lot of science and experts and who talk a lot theoretically about what the future will be. It's really important to have the buy-in of the community, because as we've been saying for a very long time as a slogan, it takes all of us. We can create all kinds of policies, financial frameworks, legal changes. We could close the dump, put solar panels on it, but the people have to carry the project and have the buy-in for the project, otherwise it'll be a failure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Will this consultation also talk about, so besides the landfill and what plans we have for it, will also focus on what we as the people have to do next, especially when it comes to, sorting of garbage and, the whole, responsibilities that we have, because we complain about the dump, but majority of the garbage that's on the dump belongs to us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's important to recognize that EDMP is a huge project. EDMP is really about the intervention on the landfill, i.e. to make the landfill aesthetically more pleasing. Part of that also is what are you going to do in the future, because you can close the landfill, but you have to actually know what you can do with your waste after. We are looking within the ministry at different things. Recycling is one, taking concrete waste and using it in the road, for example, as material is another one. You have all your greenery that's usually placed in the landfill that can be repurposed for things, support agriculture, for example. So that's one element of it as well, alongside the potential for waste energy. I think there's been a lot of talk over a number of years about waste energy. one of the things that we're looking at now is actually combining waste to energy with our regional partners. We've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of months with the French side, St.Maarten, Seba, Statia, even as far as Guadeloupe, regarding what the potential is for waste energy. Because the reality is, with the limited space that we have in St.Maarten, as other small Caribbean countries, there's limited potential for any more landfilling space. The beauty of waste energy is that basically it can take most of your waste and turn it into energy. So you're solving as two issues. You're solving your landfill and your GB sort of energy crisis all along. The challenge with waste energy, of course, has always been the amount of waste you need to keep it fueling. So we're looking to those things as well. But that's phase 2 of this project. And then finally, the third and final phase is the whole legal changes around waste. So we need a proper waste ordinance. We have to implement fines. We actually have to look at currently how we manage waste is that it comes from the general taxpayers, and then VROMI kind of negotiates what part it gets out of the budget for it. It's not enough. Nowhere in the world do people get waste collected for free. St.Maarten is one of those very few places. Everywhere else is a place you don't really want to be. So the reality is, even on the front side, everyone contributes separate from the budget and taxes to waste, and that's where we have to go as St.Maarten. So I think for me, this project is huge in the sense of we're talking about physical intervention, cultural behavioral change, and legal changes that not only impact the quality of life, but also the quality of your tourism product as well. But we have to do it for ourselves, not for tourists. Okay. That's really what it's about.
And what's the details on this consultation? So when is it happening and where?
Yeah, so Wednesday, September 3rd, from 6 to 9. I said 7 to 9 the other day, but 6 to 9 at Bel Air Community Center, not in the landfill, but Bel Air Community Center. And the idea is it's supposed to be highly interactive.
Okay.
Yes, there's going to be a formal part where I say a couple of words and, the long-term vision of the ministry. There's going to be a couple of presentations regarding what it's going to look like, the science as well. But I think what you really are looking forward to within every single segment is about 3 or 4 segments, about 20 minutes, half an hour each, with the longest one at the end about the science itself. People are going to have to ask questions. Be critical of what is presented, share your opinions, because in the end of the day, whatever we present, we need the population's buy-in. The idea is that whatever we present, your feedback will kind of form part of what the vision long-term is for future waste. It's actually coming in nicely because within the end of this month, we're launching the initial tender for companies who are interested in rescoping the entire landfill. So I'm really happy about that because it looks, we are on time, that by the time, this time next year, at the end of next year, we're going to have boots on the ground with addressing how our landfill looks.
Okay.
The behavioral process will take longer, but I think we are going to have some massive changes with this project.
What's the update when it comes to the tipping fees over there at the landfill? And also, we have I'm not sure what it's called, but the scrap metal part. I know that's becoming an eyesore, and a lot of people are very concerned, especially, let's say, during the hurricane seasons. What's next for that part? Is that also part of this whole landfill?
So one of the things that you also have to look at is that currently the company operates steel crushers. They're unofficially part of how the country manages its waste. So they have a long lease of land, and they operate, and basically we try to divert all metals towards them. What you see happening now is that the amount of space is limited, one, but also two, people are actually beginning to just dump scrap metal outside of the bound, just in front of the property itself. So again, going back to the idea of it takes everyone to kind of play their role, not just dump. But we are looking into basically the future relationship with steel crushers. We are looking into the potential of supporting as well other locals who are involved in the waste management and the diversion stream to get to kind of expand, because currently a lot of people are doing a lot of things very much at a small scale regarding renewables, renewables and diversion. How do you support them to kind of scale to the national level? So definitely they're part of the discussion, as well as others as well. A lot of people are doing recycling initiatives. We're working very close with the front side as well, because obviously, Garage doesn't know that side of front side, it just knows the island. And also we're learning a lot from the front side because they themselves already have an entrance and tipping fee for their landfill. So, this is really a cross-cutting thing about how we are going to address waste long term, but everybody, all partners currently, and those who we can recognize, we are having discussions with them.
Right. We are currently at the hurricane season, and I know a lot of people are, especially as we're getting into the peak, they're doing some cleaning up, especially around the yards, when it comes to trimming trees and throwing away, bulky waste around the yards, just to make sure that everything is safe. Do you have some words on how they could properly dispose of these items, especially when it comes to using public bins?
Yeah, the first thing is please follow schedules. I think, I find it fascinating sometimes because, we work very closely with all haulers. And I mean, there's been challenges across the board from all sides, government side, the population, and the hauler side. But I think it's unfortunate because in the passing of Hurricane Erin, we made an announcement, please, this is the last cutoff for the cleaning. 6 p.m. After that, there's no more collection of garbage because one, the landfill isn't open, and two, the haulers and the landfill operators also have families and homes that they want to, secure and take and look after as well. People still continue dumping things way into the night. Things are projected. I saw chairs, I saw fridges just on the side of the road. And then, of course, when the wind comes, they blow.
Right.
And then everybody posts, what happened today? Why was it picked up? And the reality is, it wasn't picked up because the cutoff time was done.
It was done, right.
So I think it's really going back to this idea of we can do everything we can in terms of regulation and making this landfill pretty and stopping the fires. But if the population doesn't also play their part, all those regulations and pretty landfill and, a park or whatever doesn't matter. So the behavioral aspects are very important. So again, we've been stressing since the beginning of August, end of July, there are bins in all the neighborhoods. There's extra bins, there's special bins as well for your greenery and, your construction waste as well, bulky items as well. Please make use of them. Be prepared as early as possible. I think we saw, when I was a child, a hurricane would take a week to go from 1 to 5. A hurricane goes from 1 to 5 to 6 to 12 hours.
Right. So
the impact and the expectation of damage can suddenly change. So always be prepared. And we are now entering the very peak of the hurricane season. I offer it again, prepare your most basic supply kits and needs. VROMI, along with the Ministry of General Affairs, is also busy preparing and finalizing, make sure everything is okay for the shelters. But, do your part, keep your neighborhood clean, and of course, however we can assist, we are here, but again, just asking everybody to please do their part because it takes all of us. That's really the message.
Quickly explain to us this VROMI project. What is that about, and what's the significant role does it play to St.Maarten?
Yeah, so VROMI is actually a very small part of the bigger project we're doing regarding the whole digitalization of the ministry. VROMI project in and of itself is basically about trying to digitalize, firstly, all addresses on St.Maarten. That's been a challenge for a number of years. It's actually a project started quite some time ago and now has restarted again with initial launch. And the idea is to make sure that everyone has a very credible list of addresses, road names. I know some people have roads that were cassava that came pumpkin all of a sudden, and no one seems to really understand how that happens. And the idea is to basically have a solid database of what is there, and then also put that into your database. It helps the permits department, inspection department, and one of the things that we're also doing more long term is the whole putting online the process of permits and checking where your data is. Okay. I think one of the hardest things I've seen as minister is people getting frustrated from the lack of updates about where their permits and requests are. This really is going to help facilitate making that a lot easier.
Okay. Now we recently saw, as yesterday we saw 2 department heads were suspended from the Ministry of VROMI. Now I know you probably can't go much into it as there's still an investigation going on within the ministry, but how does that affect the ministry on a whole? Will things slow down when it comes to certain permits? What happens next?
Yeah. So I know we actually have a press release coming out just as a ministry clarifying the process. So, of course, I can't say too much about it. It's really an operational thing. But rest assured, the ministry has put in place interim structures to make sure we sort of limit any impact at all that this would have. just very sort of in bigger terms, the two persons were indeed suspended pending an investigation, and this is being completely handled outside of the ministry itself, but within the bigger structure, following all procedures as outlined by the regulations of the government. For us, it's a question about making sure that everything is done properly and ensuring that the ministry still is able to continue its work, and it will continue its work.
Recently, of course, GB is also the main topic when it comes to what's going on the island, and I know usually the Prime Minister is now the one that's handling that. Where does VROMI come in? Where do you come in, when it comes to this situation with the energy crisis and the bills that everybody's been, going through?
There's been a very interesting history with GB. Legally, formally, the Minister of VROMI is the representative and the legal concession holder for GBE. If you look back at what happened in the past, when the initial hack happened, the former minister at the time, the last administration, kind of took a very interesting step back with regards to the hack and didn't necessarily no longer wanted to be addressing the issue. So the Prime Minister at the time, Silveira Rodriguez, had to step in and basically continue the work. That sort of continued now into this current administration, but it's something that we're going to address because what's happening now is that you have the person legally responsible for the company isn't necessarily the one who is making the public statements, etc. And that could present a challenge. So we are having that discussion regarding the future outlines of GB, but formally the Minister of VROMI is still the concession holder and legally responsible for all things GB. And then this is something that we're going to make sure we address. But of course, I'm still actively involved in a lot of the things that happen with GB, particularly when it comes now to their desires regarding renewable energy and transition. I think what we have to focus on is two things. It's the billing system is one, and two, the future of energy in St.Maarten, which is basically right now completely on fossil fuels. What I've been pushing as well with the Ministry of TEAT as sort of the leader in energy policy actually within the government structure is that we have to address the energy policy and really push for renewable energies because we cannot continue to rely on heavy fuel. It's too volatile. We see a lot of it, the impacts of that in terms of the pricing, in terms of also the environmental concerns, and that's where I'm playing a continuously active role until we kind of address the more legal structures around the management of GB vis-a-vis the shareholder. Speaking about the Ministry of TEAT, we've been hearing a lot about this marketplace and the stalling behind it. One reason is because of the building permit. We need that. What's going on? What's taking you so long, Patrice? Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think everybody kind of finds somehow to kind of spread the kind of accountability for it. The role of the Ministry of VROMI when it comes to the marketplace is strictly in terms of technical administrative support from new works. This has been a back and forth discussion. I think until recently we've gotten the final okay of the permit, of the drawings recently and finally submitted that now allows for the permit to actually be evaluated and moved. In that meantime, what's happened is that the Minister of TEAT, as the leader of the project, actually has mobilized for the start of the sort of the subsurface work. So the excavation, etc., has been going on. And from what I've understood, she's expecting to have this complete by end of the year. But I think it's very important to outline the responsibilities of all ministries and projects. VROMI plays a role in a lot of the different projects that are currently happening, but it's really about the decision making. Where the project goes really is the lead ministry. I think what we have to really work on as a government as a whole is communication. Documenting meetings, documenting what happened. I think that's one thing, those things that can kind of help in supporting decision-making processes that really came out of this project, among other projects as well.
All right. Honorable Minister of VROMI, Patrice Gumbs, here with us this morning on the Super Duper Morning Show. So what's next for VROMI down the pipeline? What else do you have planned?
We have quite a lot of things, actually. We've been very busy working this summer. Actually, we have the draft housing policy, which we received back after several months of consultation, that we will be sharing on the floor of Parliament shortly. I think there was a request for this Friday, but we requested a postponement because, of course, we're still in the vetting and processing review phases of that. That basically is going to outline the projected housing needs, what the different types of housing should cost, and it also is going to support the regulation between the Housing Foundation and government as well. And I think it's also shifting a bit more the idea that government has to be building homes. That's not true. Government has set regulations and policies that support individuals and private citizens who want to build homes to actually have it done. Secondly, we actually recently secured the capex loan for 10 million for the purchase of the land in Belvedere. We'll share more of that later on. We're still in the kind of the contractual negotiation side, but I'll share a bit more of that in the future. We also have a lot of focus on partnerships coming up. Why? Because I think, going back to what I've been stating, every time someone invests in St.Maarten, particularly high-end investment, it drives the cost of the average house and the cost of land. I think government has a role in terms of regulating and supporting that other people basically who are unable to afford what the market provides, government has to be a social safety net. Government is not supposed to be involved necessarily in building the homes or whatever, but okay, if you have a market economy, everybody can do what they want. Government has a role to play to say, I'm going to protect and serve everybody's interests. So with every investor that's coming in, anyone who develops a certain amount of sort of buildings or condos, whatever, so a social give back. That we're working on. There's a number of investors who have been pioneering that discussion with me as well in the last couple of months, and I'm really looking forward to sort of presenting what we've been working on in the next couple of weeks. And then finally, one of the big things we are pushing very heavily is zoning. There's a lot of work going on over the next 2 weeks. We should be finalized with a proposal on how we're going to address the infamous zoning. I think zoning the island is going to make development very easy. It becomes less abstract and gray, and the idea of ministers giving deviations will become less and less, because it becomes very clear what is allowed and what's not allowed, and also we're taking into consideration what we're actually seeing in the country. We have limited space, a very growing population and growing needs. Does the draft zoning reflect what's currently there in draft? Yes, in some places, in other places, no. So we are looking at that. We are looking as well as green zoning, so it's protecting green spaces, parks, the hilltops, which will directly impact what we do with the zoning for heights, density. So it's a very comprehensive package, because we can't keep on living in this gray area. It creates a lot of sort of investor and resident confusion, and I think it also leaves too much room for interpretation, which in turn turns into questionable government practices. So trying to clean up that very much by this year, and a lot of smaller things. I think we're focusing heavily on drainage. We have a tender coming out very shortly for the drainage in Coal Bay. One of the things I was critical about was, it's nice to have a paved road, but if you pave the road, the water you're pushing the can down the road again of the water going, instead of up the road and come down the road. So we have a plan for drainage that's been sitting on the shelf for a number of years within the ministry. We pulled it out. We said, this is still an applicable plan, and just make use of it. I think, it's really about small changes that are going to enhance the quality of life of people and ensure that, we keep the lights on, so to speak, in the ministry in terms of infrastructure. Quality of life,
Well, there you go. Well, thank you very much, Minister of VROMI. Patrice Gumbs here with us this morning on the Super Duper Morning Show, sharing what's been going on within the ministry, and also just a reminder on the landfill consultation. When is it happening?
So
again?
September 3rd, Wednesday, 6 to 9, come out, be critical, have an open mind. I think very importantly, also be respectful. These are experts, this is science. I think everybody has an idea of what they want the landfill to look like. So let's all be a part of the future of waste management. It takes all of us.
All right, there you go. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we leave, one more question. The question of the day, Tiebreak Tuesday. When doing laundry? You do laundry?
Yes, I do.
Do you start with the light loads or the heavy loads first?
I I think the light loads.
You think the light load?
Yeah, the light loads. You do your clothes first, and then you do,
the heavy
your sheets,
okay,
and your curtains,
all right,
and, whatever after. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister, and much success. And see you on September 3rd.
Perfect. Thank you guys for having me.
Bel Air Community Center from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Check it out. This is the discussion that all of us need to be involved in, as the landfill affects all of us. So make sure you come on out. Also, we are in hurricane season, so make sure you prepare and prepare the right way. If you need any information on when it comes to pickups in your area, especially of bulky waste, you could always contact the Ministry of VROMI, right?
And it's also on our Facebook pages, all the schedules. And everyone by now should know who their hauler or cleaner is in the district. Reach out to them, and let's keep the communication lines going.
All right. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very
Enjoy the rest
much.
of your day. Laser 101 station with the attitude. Keep it locked.